welcome. The focus for this fireside chat would be digital acceleration with optimized data and analytics. What is this all about? Data and analytics is a strategic business function that fuels digital acceleration. Yet, most organizations don't have a systematic way to assess, optimize, and articulate data and analytics value. So this fireside chat will analyze how data is the crucial asset and how data analytics can revolutionize businesses, enabling them to expand revenue, cut costs, and develop a better CX. So joining us on this fireside chat along with me would be Rohit Dhar, who's the President, Product Data, Design, Technology and Content at upGrad, and Vimal Venkatram, who's the Country Manager, Snowflake, India. So without further ado, let me welcome our distinguished esteemed panelists. Welcome, Rohit, to the fireside chat.
Thank you, Shantheri.
And a warm welcome to Vimal as well. Welcome, Vimal. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you, Shantheri.
Right. So my first question gets directed to Rohit. So Rohit, here's my opening to you. So you've been a tech entrepreneur. You've worked to leading companies like PayPal, Flipkart, OLX. You've had a very distinguished innings in all these companies, taking up millennial leadership roles in edutech, basically as a part of the edutech evolution with upGrad now. So how do you think basically that the role of data has evolved over the years, and what specific impact has it had on your business? So over to you, Rohit.
Thank you. So I think first of all, Shantheri, thank you for making me part of this conference. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, and thanks Vimal for taking the time out and coming here and helping us share our point of views. Data, Shantheri, has been in the year 2008, 2009 when I was with eBay, PayPal, StubHub. Data was always important. I don't think data was never important. It was always important. It's only our maturity of understanding data and actually leveraging data into a day-to-day life is what is coming out today, and it's manifesting itself. In my older days, when I realized that data is important and I started using it, this was back in Silicon Valley, where I was spending way more time, and the maturity is way higher there. I think with time, we have realized here as well at Flipkart, the data was very, very important. OLX, same, every day we would look at data, and same with upGrad at this point. So definitely, when it comes to data, there are multiple things. Again, I don't want to get into every detail of it, but I want to give you some context here. How many users are coming in? How many users are bouncing off our website? Or how many users are coming in and installing an app and uninstalling an app? How many users are coming in and actually going from one page to another page? How many users are coming in and actually signing up and logging in? How many users are coming in and actually logging in and showing interest of a product offering? How many users are coming in and actually transacting? And all of this, what are they clicking on? What are they tapping on their mobile phone? What are they browsing? What are they, looking? What are the links that they're going? All of this data helps us understand what kind of a user behavior pattern are there. And based on data, we constantly change our user experiences. Very simple example, but very, we would not even imagine. But on the homepage of upGrad, when in year 2020, last year, when we went ahead and redesigned that homepage on the apps on the website, we went ahead and created a card design. The card design was effectively saying what is a course, what are the details, and why should you take up that course. We did not change the information. We just changed the design, and there was an increase and a decrease in terms of user dropping their leads or asking for more information. Can you imagine? Just a change in visual design where the affordance of information has not changed. It's just a color change, some bit of background change, some bit of layout change. That makes a huge difference. So we went ahead. We thought we went ahead with a much sharper design, but we reverted back and went to the older design because that is what our users like. So that's where the data comes in. This is where I think it's amazing to see, based on user insights, based on how users are acting on what we do, we constantly evolve and change. We launched a brand new program page, which effectively we thought would be one of the best program page we have worked for the longest time. You know what? The worst case, the conversions dropped, and we literally 3 months work of effort went down. The brain is what we thought initially as a knee-jerk reaction, and but we went ahead and rolled back. First thing first, roll back, ensure that we at least give the user the experience that they like. And then now we are actually experimenting on top of what we have built to see where are the challenges, what can we fix to ensure that the ideal experience that we thought was a great experience with all the research, all the data, but actually on production that is not working out. So this is where I think data comes in very, very handy. And if a leader understands data and actually, so there is one thing called understanding, second thing is called acknowledging, and third is called acting. I think the element of acknowledging and acting is where sometimes we miss out, because being aware, yeah, the conversion is this way, is that, but not acknowledging that, hey, our conversion has dropped and hence we need to do something. And that something is also clearly called out that these are the three things that we do is very important for us. So I think awareness, acknowledgement, and action. This is what goes in hand. This is AAA rule that I have when it comes to data for sure.
Sure. Very interesting. Thank you for opening the conversation in a very insightful way, Rohit, with the 3 A's. I would stay right with you at this point of time and move on further. So obviously, since the last 16 months, we've people across the world have actually kind of felt the effects of the pandemic in a very pronounced way. So obviously, you may have had an experience of a sudden surge of demand resulting in data explosion, quite obviously. So how did you manage this sudden demand for additional resources and high concurrency of users across the board?
So Shantheri, again, we were not prepared. Definitely, we had a lot of challenges. We had attacks and multiple other things happening, but our systems were strong enough to hold up, and we ensured that we were able to ensure the systems at bare bones are there. There was definitely a lot of improvements that we had to make right from the month of November. There were like, just to give you context, we were probably at a 30% security params where we are today in the month of November. So we have aggressively worked on those items. We were probably at a 50% at what the scale that we could handle, and we've aggressively worked, hired people. We have some number which is in double count every week that we are targeting to hire. That's the amount of people that we are hiring every week to ensure that we are able to support our technology. So there is no silver bullet to this, right? When traffic comes in, you've got to figure out how to fire up, servers. You've got to ensure your auto scales are on. You've got to ensure that the security systems are in place. You've got to ensure that your services, while your auto scale servers are on, your services are also up and ready to be able to handle this kind of a huge volume of data coming in. We did see some drops in our services because our services were not ready for that kind of volume. But now, with the engineering team's effort, all the hard work that they have been doing over the weekends or late nights have really made a huge difference, and we are now robust, up and running, and ready for any kind of challenge, even if it is 2x, 3x of the volume that comes in.
Sure, sure. So, moving on from what Rohit has just kind of spoken about, saying that there's never a silver bullet to it and one can never be prepared, but it's about how you acknowledge and then move the curve. Thanks, Rohit, for that great insight. At this point of time, inviting Vimal into the conversation. Vimal, there's a lot of jargon that has been outlined about unlocking the value of data and analytics as part of the digital transformation process. We've heard this quite often in varying contexts. How would you, as an industry practitioner, observer, break this down or define this sharply for a technology buyer who seeks this as a short and long-term objective? Over to you, Vimal.
Thank you, Shantheri. Thanks for that wonderful question. And Rohit, you gave some invaluable insights to everybody on the call with your AAA approach. especially when it comes to the explosion of data. I think at Snowflake, we don't use a AAA approach possibly, but we do have something called AGA. So there's a G in the middle, which is replaced. So we call it access, governance, and then action. So I think from a step standpoint, what we're looking at is, to Rohit's point, especially in the last about 18 months when everyone has been at home and there has been a huge surge on certain kinds of industries, especially with work from home, in terms of the video conferencing applications, or you're talking about students sitting at home trying to access online courses for either regular coursework or also for self-enrichment. There's been a huge demand. And everything starts with, do I have access to all the data that I'm generating within my organization? Now that data can be in multiple formats, right? It could be a structured data, it could be semi-structured data, and all of what Rohit spoke about in terms of, if a user is on an application and trying to figure out which part of the application is getting used a lot more, or what content is getting consumed, what has been the user interaction, what has been the overall time spent on a particular application or a certain module in an application. All of this is something what we call clickstream data, which is typically in semi-structured format. All of this then gets into a single data store, and that is the holy grail, where you now need to build a platform where there is access to all the data that you generate within your organization in a single platform. Once you have access, I think Rohit also touched upon a very important point, which is around security. There has been a big rise as the volume of data really expands exponentially. There has been a lot of things like attacks, for example, or even unsecured data stores, which are then kept within an organization, which are potential for any kind of leakage or some kind of access by external forces, which shouldn't be there. So we believe that governing all that data, once you have access to all of it, is extremely critical, which is where platforms like us, from a Snowflake perspective, we come in, where all the data, for example, is encrypted at flight as well as at rest, along with a whole lot of other security functions that we support. And then finally, once you have access to all the data and you've governed it, you have all the role-based access controls, you have the security classifications built in, and finally it comes into action. To Rohit's point, what can we do now? Build and act on that data that we have in the organization. One thing is to acknowledge and know what the problem is. The second is actually govern it and secure it. And final point is around acting. What can I do now that I have access to all of this? What are the decisions that I can make? Can be small decisions, can be large decisions. And then it all boils down to the intent in an organization. I say that in multiple forums, that the intent to change, or the intent to acknowledge that I need to change, is the starting point. Everything else is very easy to follow. If the leadership teams really acknowledge that, yes, there is an intent for us to change, what has worked so far for the last 6 months will not get us for the next 6 months. That is a fundamental change in what we're seeing from a customer standpoint. And I think, to answer the other question as well, how do you define this from a short-term and long-term perspective, as far as any customers are concerned? While you have the intent, and then you have the tools and technology to change, and then you have the intent also to sort of maybe disrupt something within an organization, is to move potentially even beyond the return on investment conversation, where there is a lot of merit today to spend a lot more to actually get a lot more return. So I believe that gone are the days where you're looking at a project from a typical project management standpoint. You have a typical 18 months to 24-month window. Here you're looking at very, very quick fail fast kind of technologies which are coming in, where within a couple of months whether it's going to potentially add value to your organization or not. If it's not, you stop the project and you move to the next one. So these kind of approaches, where you start thinking about it from a more holistic perspective, would really hold organizations in good stead going forward.
Sure. Very aptly observed, Vimal. I think distinctly from a very, huge, large turnaround time, which we saw even 5 years or beyond when it came to projects or when it came to looking at technology. People now prefer to fail fast and move forward. So thank you so much for that. I come back to Rohit at this point of time with the next question. So Rohit, we know about data silos. A lot of legacy companies or traditional industries have this as an ongoing part of their process shift. So do new age companies also eventually come to this pass where there are data silos? Do you experience this back in your organization? Does it exist? If yes, do you circumvent it? How do you circumvent it?
So I think there are multiple elements or dimensions to data silos. One data silo is the data silo of consistency of data. Like one department says, here is the data, other one says, no, I disagree, here is the data. And that's a consistency problem. And definitely we have had those challenges in the past organizations, and we are fixing it and we have fixed it. And the other aspect of is, hey, I'm looking at this data and the insights into the data, which means, hey, you know what, if the sales are not happening here, which means this is not making sense, we should just go ahead and move into another area. And that insight. Whereas one person would say the sales are not happening, hence it's not the right audience, let's move ahead, versus saying, hey, we might not have the right selection, and hence we might want to increase the selection or reduce our prices, versus going ahead and saying that the customer is not right for us. So that's an insight, silo that we will have. So consistency and insight are the two major challenges that I have. The third is also the competency, and this is what the last bit is, that if you think of data, you can break the data down, data teams down into business analytics, which brings in business insights. Here are the reports, here are this, blah, blah, and that's about it. There is product analytics, which is effectively saying, you know what, this is what the features have been, this is where the data is, this is how you capture it, these are the events, these are the UTM parameters, all of the technical details of it, right? And then the third is your data engineering, which effectively means how to implement data on ground, on premise, and ensure that the data is built in a more of a scalable process. And the last but not the least, which is the fourth item, is data science, where effectively all the data, all the business insights, all the product analytics, how you put it together, and you can run models on top of it to come up with certain predictions, projections, recommendations that would make sense. So those are the four major buckets that we should be looking at whenever we're thinking of data silos. Now, data silos do get created when these four functions are not being clearly called out what their responsibilities are and how are they executing on a day-to-day basis, right? And how are they adding up to the organizational insights? I think if you don't have that structure, and if everyone is doing everything, they're spread too thin and effectively giving random and wrong insights to the organization to take wrong actions. So that's one thing that large organizations need to be very clear about. Okay, hey, these are the four functions that we should look at, and accordingly we should go ahead and ensure execution happens. This is where I think the major silos come into play.
Sure, sure. So, which brings me to the next point. It's a slightly long drawn point, but I think it kind of adds back to what you were just saying. So there have been studies which actually talk about staying competitive in the marketplace, and staying competitive requires an organization to harness data as a strategic asset, which you kind of approached just right now. So, but just aggregating data, as you rightly mentioned, or just analyzing data collected within an organization is no longer sufficient. I mean, I don't think that really cuts or makes the cut. The real value today perhaps lies in data collected from across both internal and external sources, and collecting and kind of harnessing the data securely via data exchange or through perhaps a very sort of focused data marketplace or so on. Since your organization is connected with various institutions, universities, etc., how seamless is it for you to exchange data in real time, understand the community that you're serving, and provide the right recommendations? So, Rohit, it's a slightly long drawn point, but over to you.
Yeah, so I think first of all, I don't think anything is seamless. Let's be honest, nothing is seamless until you work towards it. Yeah. What we have done and it's still working towards is we are building our own data lake. And that's what I want to again break this down for us to understand. So that if you remember the previous part of consistency first, and then insights, and then the functions. So to bring consistency, you need to have ensure that the insights are right. For bringing insights, you need to ensure the functions are right. In the function, what we are doing effectively is because why are we doing all of this? Primarily because data exchanges are not happening real time. There is no seamlessness there. There's constant challenges that we have on the consistency and insights front. So hence what we have done is now we have these four functions that are working towards together with the clear goals. When these four functions work together and the data engineering team is working towards building the data lake for us, while data analytics team, product analytics team is ensuring that all the data is coming into the data lake with clear, tagging, UTM params, events, all of that is coming in with the right, which is effectively user behavioral data and user profile data. All of that is coming together, effectively helping the business analytics to now pull the data with a lot more peace in their mind that I am getting a single data source, which is going to give me all data and consistent data. And hence also giving the data science the peace of mind. You know what? Now I'm working on all the data which is going to come together and then a single data source. I can now run my models on top of it and ensure I have a holistic and comprehensive recommendation going out there for my customers. So again, no silver bullet. The point is first we are aware, then we acknowledge here's a challenge, we build it out in terms of structure, and now we hire people specifically for these and ensure their focus every week, every day, every alternate days. We ensure that there are specific deliverables are happening in terms of data lake, in terms of events tracking, correction of events from product analytics standpoint, in terms of business reports corrections, and effectively correcting the models as we move forward. When we do all of these for each of these functions, you see a seamlessness coming through slowly. If you let go of the rigor, if you let go of the discipline of ensuring that the teams do this on a day-to-day basis, effectively you will again go back to your old siloed approach.
Right, right, right. Thank you for that. So basically, even if we're talking about a single source approach, there has to be a certain rigor and a method to the madness, is what you're trying to say, right? Right, right. Great point, Rohit. So I will move to Vimal. My next question is directed to you, Vimal, at this point of time. So what are the key data sets that can be effectively designed and architected for an organization by looking at their data strategy? So how does Snowflake really step in to help customers to do this optimally? Over to you, Vimal.
Thank you, Shantheri. And Rohit, great insights once again. So to use some of the context that you also set in here from a Snowflake perspective, I think when customers are looking at data sets to build a very robust and very resilient data strategy, one is, like I said, is to make your data within your organization available in a single source of truth. So in a single pane of glass, so that there is consistency. To Rohit's point, there is consistency in every department who are making data-driven decisions, that the data is in a single place. So it's not going across multiple different parts of the organization. And we've seen this in live examples where the finance teams have their own data, little data marts, the marketing team has their own data. They're never in sync. Some would be n-2, some might be n-1 hour, some might be n+2 days. So it becomes very difficult to know which department is making what kind of decisions. So one is, of course, getting it into a single source of truth. Then you're looking at what can I do from a data sharing standpoint. So now that I have all my own organization's data in a single place, what can I do to ensure from a data sharing standpoint? Can I now share data within my own organization securely? Now, here is where the concepts of data sharing or using more data sets or external data sets to make your own analytics a lot more richer. You can run models on them, you can run your regular analytics on them. For example, where we enable secure data sharing without data ever moving place. And this is something which the market has really, we have resonated very well with the market. We have more than 150 data providers on our data marketplace today. We'll soon be able to even monetize that data in our marketplace as well. So where one is to share data internally within an organization, let's say from one department or one business unit to the other purely. So anytime you make a change in your data set, it is available in real time for the others to sort of consume without data ever moving any kind of place from your organization. The third is, of course, third-party data sets. How can I now consume third-party data sets which are available in our data marketplace through our ever expanding marketplace. You have financial data from the likes of, let's say, Equifax or S&P or FactSet or Refinitiv. You could have potentially, healthcare data from folks like Star Schema, which have real-time COVID-19 data, which is coming in. You could have even stock market data coming in from the stock exchanges, which are available through our marketplace. Marketing data from the likes of, let's say, Mixpanel, for example. So all of these data sets are readily available for customers to consume from our marketplace. And this data sets is always increasing because, like I said, customers really enjoy working with Snowflake for making it very easy to consume third-party data sets without any friction whatsoever, because data is not moving. It remains in the customer's place. It remains in the data provider's, their own control. And the changes is real time. Anytime a data set is changed, it is available fresh for everyone to consume. So all of these are the key important points an organization should look for when they're setting up a data strategy.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Rohit, I come back to you following what Vimal just said. So, very clearly now data and analytics doesn't remain a secondary focus anymore. It's part of the core functions of an organization. So, what would be some of the recommendations that you would give for business leaders while actually, sort of devising or developing a data team? Any specific recommendations? Over to you.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to my previous 2 points, which is that whenever you're thinking of building a data team, you need to understand how, again, depending on the scale of the organization. If the scale of the organization is dealing with anything more than a million or 2 million customer base on a monthly basis, I would highly recommend that we have 4 functions of data, so that you can give them clear focus to them. Even if it is a couple of guys per function, it's perfectly okay, but ensure that they are focused into their function. uh, one function would be business analytics, where their day-to-day job is to ensure that they are able to bring in reports on a daily basis, tell us what's going wrong, what's going right, what is where the system, where the users are leaving, where the users are coming. It's more about business market insights that they're bringing in. The second is product analytics, where they need to ensure that the data has been captured right, and from a technology standpoint, because if they don't capture it right, effectively the business guys can't build the reports right, and they will be giving the wrong data sources. So hence, product analytics is very, very important. Third, the product analytics cannot do anything if data engineering does not ensure that then the data is actually implemented on ground, on the servers, in the systems, very cleanly and clearly. And having a data lake of sorts, this is a good idea. So I would definitely recommend that as part of that. Then fourth function is again optional depending on what kind of business you are in. Ideally, all businesses you should have, which is data science, where the goal would be whatever you've been doing, now that you know the insights, now that you know what customers are doing or what they're not doing, you just bring recommendations based on data only, pure play data, and we ensure that these are the recommendations that we have, which are actually built based on models that have been run, which is in collaboration with the understanding of what business wants, what the goals they want, and what customers want. You bring them all together in terms of the end goals, and then you run models with the insights that we have and see what can we achieve and how can we give you a recommendation. Very simple example: if Shantheri, you're looking for a TV, a couple of TVs, yeah, it's very relevant that you're looking for TV. But if you're looking for a Sony TV versus a Panasonic TV, it gives us a lot of insights. Hey, okay, if you're looking for Sony TV, we know the taste that you have, and we might be able to give you much better, much clearer recommendations versus when you're looking at a Panasonic TV. And that itself is what data science as a function can do beautifully, online or offline. Ideally, in this world, post-pandemic, it's always online. That's how I would look at it, and that's how I would look at it.
Sure. So, Rohit, I'll just stay with you for a quick, corollary here. So, since you spoke about data science, what has been the thrust of investments as far as data science is concerned from your organizational standpoint? Some specific things, if you would wish to talk about.
Absolutely. So, Shantheri, we definitely we actually teach data science as part of our upGrad offerings, right? upGrad courses that we have. We have multiple partnerships with multiple universities that students should go out and check. And we have made, and there are deep data science strengths that we have and partnerships where you have that learners can learn and students can learn. Apart from that, in the organization itself, we have a strong data science team, which has been able to tell us which of the learners will take a course, which of the learners will not take a course, which of the learners will take relevant jobs for our existing learners, signed up learners, relevant jobs recommended to them, or irrelevant jobs are taken away from their job start. So we have an end-to-end ecosystem of a learner's career growth. In that, there is an element of what kind of recommendations of courses we can give you if you have signed up already for a course, you've paid, and now you are part of a cohort slash a class of a course. Then while you're in the course, during the course, we also give you recommended jobs. In that recommendation, we are talking about data science helping us improving our recommendations, giving them relevant jobs which are either mapping to their previous experience or mapping to their current course and the location, multiple other things. So all of this is data science. Without data science, I think it's like driving a car without a steering wheel,
Sure.
and or driving a car at night without the lights on. So that's
Sure.
how I think data science as a function is, and I can't even imagine running a product organization, technology organization without data science as a function.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Rohit. So, Vimal, coming back to you here to understand your views on some of the best practices for data-driven technology organizations. So, Rohit's given some real fantastic insights. So, I'm sure you have something, to add on or some specifics you have to share here as well. Over to you.
Thank you, Shantheri. Rohit, I'm going to borrow these lines from you. Definitely about no steering wheel as well as no lights when it comes to data science. Those were fantastic.
Correct.
So, great question, Shantheri. When you're looking at from an organization perspective, what are the best practices to possibly be a data-driven organization, right? Like I said even earlier, it all starts with the intent. So the intent to build a data-driven culture, that's very, very important. How do I now promote this within my own organization where I actually tell everybody, right from leaders to everyone in the organization to make decisions based on data? And that all comes from, are we setting the right metrics? For example, are we committed to making these decisions based on accurate and reliable metrics and which are supporting the business goals right now? And all of this then ties into, have we created a single source of truth? Is there consistency in these data-driven decisions using the right metrics that we have done? So obviously we're looking at creating a single governed and scalable source of all the data that combines multiple workloads, could be from within your own organization or even consumed from our data marketplace, for example. And you can immediately start accessing and querying the data. And then you're looking at democratizing data. For example, how do I make data easily available and securely accessible across the organization? Can we now build those data engineering pipelines which make it a lot easier for internal customers to consume that data? Then we're looking at potentially how do we now connect and mobilize that information? And then, how do I leverage, for example, AI and machine learning around this? Can we create a test and learn mentality when adopting AI initiatives, for example, getting user feedback and incorporating that in the next version? And then we're looking at how do you modernize your data infrastructure? You could look at a modern data infrastructure like our own data cloud, for example, which leverage cloud technologies to enable data-driven decision making, where we can scale pretty much to a near infinite level. We can scale based on seasonality or on user demand, for example. And then finally, how do you invest in a culture of data governance? How do you build a culture where you're investing in the adoption of data governance framework, which helps you to mitigate risk and apply the right security principles to help ensure future business needs?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, very aptly summed up here, Vimal. So, honestly, it was a very insightful discussion between the two of you, Rohit and Vimal here. I mean, I thought we broadly touched upon some very interesting parts about the relevance of data and the radical shift in the paradigm of data and analytics pre and post the pandemic, and the different aspects of data and analytics in digital transformation, complexity of data management landscapes, from your industry and various industry standpoints, unlocking the real, value of data and analytics. What are the, what is the AAA approach, which Rohit spoke about, in understanding how data works in an organization, how you acknowledge and act upon the dynamics, and how to design an augmented data management infrastructure and evolve your own strategy. There's no silver bullet. I like some of the, like Vimal rightly said, I like some of the jargon that came out, some of the terms, the realistic, pieces of information that came from both Vimal and Rohit. There's no silver bullet. There can be no complete seamless, but there can be a single source approach which, applied with rigor, can actually come to near seamlessness. So thank you so much, Rohit and Vimal, for joining on this conversation. That was Rohit Dhar, President, Product, Data, Design, Technology and Content from upGrad. He was joined by Vimal Venkatram, Country Manager of Snowflake India. Thank you so much for joining us on the Fireside Chat.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.